Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another session where we are going to talk about on how you can reinvent your community strategies. So just to set the context, if I talk about the role of online communities, we can see that it has become increasingly vital for organizations to seeking to connect with their target audience. And as the traditional marketing strategies continue to be disrupted, businesses that are now looking out for that growth, they need to actually rethink on their community strategies to remain competitive and relevant. I would say online communities definitely serve as a valuable platform for building relationship, sharing knowledge with peers, and creating a sense of belonging among customers, partners, and even employees. And I think that to succeed in this dynamic environment, businesses must consider several key factors. Well, that's what our next speaker will be talking about. I'm happy to invite Brian Oblinger to the stage as a keynote speaker. Brian is a community consultant with over 25 years of experience in the industry. He helps brands engage with their customers to increase satisfaction, lower cost, and even generate more revenue through the power of community. He's the founder and lead instructor of Community Strategy Academy and also a co-host of the In Before the Log podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Brian speaking on reinventing community strategies in today's business landscape. Over to you, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Rohit. I appreciate it. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever everyone is in the world. Great to be with you. I know we have, sort of a tight schedule here. So let me see if I can just go ahead and get us going very quickly. I can see the chat. So as you have questions and things like that, feel free to pop them in there and I'll do my best either to answer along the way or we'll leave some time at the end. So what I really want to talk about today and very quickly kind of in the time that I have is community strategy. Now, I would actually say that a lot of things, as much as has changed over the years, like a lot of things have stayed the same. But I want to talk about, kind of what's changing and how you can think about strategy and give you a framework on which to build going forward. So with all that said, what I want to kind of start us out with here is this idea that, we used to build community with pretty much one use case in mind. So we would say, this is a support community, or this is a customer success community, or this is a product community, or a developer community, or, whatever brand that we put on it, but typically focusing on one single use case. And what I'm here to say is that I just don't think that's a viable strategy anymore. Now, you may start with a single use case, and I think that's great. And you have to focus somewhere, right, as you're getting started. But I think very quickly, as you're building your community and scaling and thinking about how to make it bigger and better, you very quickly want to go from that single use case to 2 use cases, 3 use cases, more, right? And I'll kind of talk about, what that looks like, how other people are doing it, give you some examples. There's so much value to be had by thinking about your community as a platform to deliver success across the business, as opposed to just one particular use case in one particular department or something of that nature. So what I want to talk about here is, what I'm kind of calling the integrated CX here, but it's this idea that, you think of community really as a center of excellence and a platform for everyone else in the organization to achieve their goals. But to do that, first, we have to turn our focus outward, right, to our customers. So point number 1 here is if we really want to build a great community and a great experience, we have to stop thinking about ourselves. We have to stop thinking about what our outcomes are, what we need out of this. Those are, of course, important and we'll get there. But first, we have to think about, what do our customers need? What do our prospects need? What do our partners need? Who are these different personas, right? Who are the different groups of people? What are their challenges and how can we help them? And so I want you first, when you're thinking about strategy, to be customer focused and lead with value and think about how we can help them be heroes in their organizations. And if we can do that and do it well and consistently over time, then we will get the benefits that we're looking for. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. The second piece is around collaboration, internal alignment, right? A lot of communities are still shipping the org chart, as I would say. Even if I don't know anything about the company, if I show up and sort of navigate around a community, I can usually tell, right? Like who owns which part and who's, contributing, and maybe get a sense of some of the internal politics. Your customers don't care about any of that. And I think what we really want to do is work hand in hand with people around the company to say, how can we help you achieve your goals? How can we deliver value? How can we make this a seamless experience as much as possible, instead of having our customers jump through hoops and they're going over here for an LMS and over there for community and somewhere else for advocacy and somewhere else for events. How do we do what we sort of see on the right side of the screen here and make that one seamless experience? Now, to do that, we have to interconnect all of these things. Unfortunately, there's no one platform that does everything, super perfect. And I wish that was the case. Our lives would all be a lot easier, right? So what we have to do is think about, okay, we have these different platforms, we have these different technologies, we have these different experiences we're trying to deliver. How do we build all of that together? Well, hopefully we can connect it to an SSO. Hopefully we can build some sort of global navigation that sits across all of these, that unifies the UI and the UX, so that customers, even if the URL is changing, right, as they're clicking around, to them it feels like one thing, or it feels like a family of things. And then, of course, other technologies like unified search. I might know a company that has that that can help you out with that. How do we bring all these things together and stop putting it on our customers to figure it out? They should just show up and search and navigate and, interact and consume and do all the things they want to do without ever really knowing what the platforms are that underlie each one of these bubbles, right? It's easier said than done. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but I think that's aspirationally where you want to go. And as I said before, if we do all of those things and we do them well, then we will deliver our business outcomes and we can measure them and communicate ROI and that sort of a thing. To give you a little bit of a different view, some of you may have seen this from me before, but I think it's really important just to stop here for a minute and talk about it, is we need to think about, from a customer experience perspective, much, much higher even than community, what are all of those touch points? Where it's not linear like this, right? Some people are going to bounce around in between here. But from the minute that people become aware of us all the way through, maybe they're an advocate of our company or our products or our services, what are those touch points along the way? And how do we use community to impact that experience or influence that experience? It's not going to solve all of our problems, right? But it can actually have some pretty broad applicability. So, I'm not going to go through each of these, but you can kind of get a sense that, throughout the experience, there's different ways we can build community and, that experience to deliver that. And then there's the business value that's associated with each one of these things. So we're really thinking about this less about how do we get value? How do we, get ROI? What's our goals? It's symbiotic, right? It's shared value. They're getting something and we're getting something, and hopefully everybody's happier. And along the way, the experience should be much, much better for it. So there's that piece. Let's talk about like someone who's actually done this well, right? Because it's easy for me to say that and build pretty slides with, charts and whatever. It turns out there's a bunch of companies doing this really well today. I wanted to take a minute and talk about Gong, who I think is a absolutely perfect example of everything that I'm describing here. So they've done a great job of bringing together a number of platforms, a number of systems, different experiences, right? So if you go to their community, which is the visioneers.gong.io here, you'll see this play out. And I can talk about it, but I think what you should do is actually go there and experience it for yourself and click around. I think what you'll find as you do that it's pretty seamless. You don't really notice transitions as much from different platforms. Everything has a really great cohesive brand around it, which I think is really fun and exciting. They've done a lot of work from a UI and a UX perspective, right, to make this look great, feel great. And as a member, I want to explore, right? I want to click on all these tiles. I want to see what's available. I want to see how I can get involved. There's truly something for everyone there, but it's all in one single platform, or one single experience, many platforms in one experience. So they're a really great example of this that, brings it all together. Unfortunately, I don't see as much of this as I'd like. And so that's why I'm talking about it today, because I think strategically, this is where I want all of you to go and think about. Now, it's really hard, right? If it was that easy, everybody would do it. Certainly, there's a lot of momentum and effort and, things that go on to get all of this in this state. But when you do get here, it's really incredible. So Gong is a perfect example of that. Okay, so let me give you some really prescriptive, strategic approaches that you can do to get to be like Gong, right? What are the things you need to do to get there? First of all, as I mentioned before, I want you to reconnect internally, right? I want you to go talk to other teams. I want you to kind of break out of this idea that, you're the only one working on community. Understand their challenges is the first bit here, right? Go talk to people around the company, different customer-facing groups. What are your goals? What are you working on? What's your big challenge right now? What kind of problems are you trying to solve? Just understand what they're doing and how they talk about it and what their needs are and how they measure those things. And then you can start to talk about solutions. What we often do is we flip those. We show up, we're talking about community and how great it is and it's amazing and it's going to solve all of your problems. And what we ultimately do is we miss their challenges. We miss what they're needing, right? So we want to start with their needs, and then together we can create shared goals to say, how can I help you? How can we use what we're building to deliver that value for you, right? And that way, there's just a much more collaborative, connection here. You always want to give more than you take, right? I think the best way to position this is we're a center of excellence. We're building a platform for many different people to achieve things, and let's build that trust, right? I think you're going to have to show more than you tell. It's easy to talk about it. I think you're going to have to deliver some things with them together and build that relationship and that trust. And then over time, you'll have an opportunity, to kind of take it further. The other thing that I see often inside of companies is we take all the credit, right? When it comes to community, it's look what we did, look how community's working. I want you to think the opposite. I want you to think about how we communicate the successes that your partners and your collaborators are having in community, right? It's ultimately their win and you're the platform on which it's built. You're still going to win, in that. But I think, focusing on how we talk about these efforts that we did together and what their outcomes are is only going to make you better. Again, this is hard. Everybody would do it if it was easy, but I want you to reconnect internally and collaborate. All right. And I see some questions coming. We'll definitely answer those. The next thing is I want you to rethink your strategy and programs. Not totally, right? Because a lot of the things we do work really well and they're best practices. But there are a few key points here. Number one, keep it real, right? When we start to look at strategies and programs, one of the things we often do is, we don't want to admit the things that aren't working. And I think, sometimes it's easy to blame vendors, right? And say, oh, well, if I was on a different platform or I had different technology, I would be so much better off. What I've found actually over the last 20, some odd years is the exact opposite. Typically, most of the things that we fail at or struggle with are strategic in nature. Technology is important and can help us deliver on our strategy, but it's not everything, right? And so I want you to start being really honest about what's working and what's not. And the way that you can do that is become very analytical, right? You want to analyze what you're doing. You want to understand it. You want to be honest about it. And then you want to optimize it. You want to say, maybe there's certain things that we're doing that we should double down on. Maybe there's other things that we should just completely cut. And that can be painful because there's a bit of the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you're thinking, well, we've already sunk a bunch of time into this thing and now we don't know what to do. I would encourage you to just be kind of ruthless with your programs and get rid of the things that aren't working and double down on the other ones. And then just do that, right, as a repetitive cycle. And the benefit of all that is you'll become much more proactive as opposed to reactive, which is nice. Onboarding and retention. So kind of on the programmatic side of this thing, most people don't really focus on onboarding their members in a great way, right? Like they sign up and it's like, cool, you signed up. We dump you in the community. Maybe you get a badge or something. And that's it, right? There's no other programmatic approach around welcoming them to the community or onboarding them into the technology side of it or shepherding them through some sort of experience. And as a result, we just don't create, the depth of relationship and connection and sort of long-term, engagement that we're looking for from people. And then on the other side, sometimes we get way too focused on building, we need more people. We got to get them all in here. We don't focus on we're too busy watching the front door. We're not looking at the back door. And so what's happening is you see a lot of communities say, well, we got 1,000 new members this month. Yeah, well, 1,500, churned because we didn't pay any mind to building engagement or retention with them. So programmatically, those are two areas that I think almost everybody can focus a little bit more attention. And your community and your members will be much better for it. Now, these don't have to be huge things, right? You can run little experiments. You can see what works. Not everything has to be the world's biggest, greatest, most built out program of all time. Just start, trying little things, see what works. Again, go back to that analyze, optimize, repeat. Cut the stuff that doesn't, double down on the stuff that does. And I think you'll be in a much better place in the long run through those cycles strategically and programmatically. All right. Last but not least, let's talk about technology, right? And UX. Collaboration. You'll notice that I've said this, I think, on every slide that I've talked about here. Stop shipping the org chart. Start thinking about that experience. Start with the end state in mind. What would we want? What kind of experience is the best? The Gongs of the world, the Salesforces of the world. ServiceNow has a great, experience like this. Intuit has a great experience like this. If you want to go check out a few more. Navigation, right? We've gotten so focused on search and other things that, unfortunately we've done away with like really great navigation, especially in this unified world where we have an LMS, a community platform, an advocacy platform, an events platform. You click into those things, the nav completely changes. I get lost. I don't know where I'm at. We need to go back to basics actually and think about what is a great navigation and discovery experience for our members as we think more broadly about that experience. This is a big place that a lot of people are falling down. Again, the integration part of this, right? We have data in all of these platforms. We have it in our CRM. How do we connect those together? How do we bring that data together so that we can analyze it, get some insights, make better decisions? What does that back end plumbing look like? How do we move those pieces around? And then finally, how do we automate some of those things, right? Like we're doing so much manual tasks these days. The question is, what are the things that we're doing that are super repetitive? Even if you can't automate all of it, right? If you have a specific workflow, even if you can automate 50% of that workflow or 60% of that workflow, that's a lot less work that you're going to have to do in the long run, right? So it's not about automating everything and you sitting back in your chair and watching it all unfold. It's about just chipping away slowly at all of these tasks and workflows that you can. And in the long run, as I like to say, a lot of little ones make a big one, right? So that was a really quick whirlwind tour of all of this. And now, happy to answer any questions that I can, including the ones that are in the chat or otherwise. Let's take a look. I don't know if Rohit's coming back, but I'll take a look at the chat here. Creedy says, how do companies balance the need for innovation and reinvention of their community strategies while still maintaining a sense of continuity and stability for their members? That's a fantastic question, because you are, in a way, over time, building the plane as you fly it, so to speak, right? I think what matters in the end is that people do fear change, and sometimes change can be jarring. I think it's all about how you message the change, right? It's the change management part of this. Ultimately, though, if the experience is getting better over time, then I think they'll be a lot more happy and they'll be more excited to embrace the change. So you can help yourself a lot by communicating it very well, making sure the changes make sense, and making sure ultimately that it's something they actually want and care about, right? Let's see here. I'm just going to kind of scroll through the comments, see what we got here. In your opinion, Asta says, in your opinion, how have companies redefined their community strategies to ensure members are not only heard, but actively contribute to shaping the direction? Yeah, ask them, right? I always say this, like, companies spend so much time, money, effort guessing, well, we think people want this, or we think people want that, or sometimes they don't think about that at all, and it's just purely internally focused, right? And they're saying, well, we need to deliver this goal, or we need to deliver that goal, or I need to make this number or that number, so therefore we're going to make this change. you definitely want to involve your community in this process, right? You want to do surveys, you want to have conversations with them, you want to ask them about the things you're doing, you want to preview those changes that are coming up and make it a much more symbiotic, collaborative relationship with them as well. Otherwise, you're probably just wasting time trying to build things that people might not care about or get value out of. Let's see here. Just looking through the questions.
Well, it's time, I guess we have to shift to another panel discussion, but I would definitely say that, Brian, that was really very well explained. And I mean, that's why the term member centricity, truly holds a great value when we talk about that integrated community experience.